Well, what's up again there, guys? Brian here, the Three Topics Gamer, here to give you another episode of the People's Questions, where I answer a series of questions that have been sent to me. Sadly, we didn't really have any solid questions that could make it into last week's video, so we couldn't have one. But we do have some here, so I think it's a pretty good thing. We got about 8 questions from 8 individuals, and I believe 2 of them are in fact new, so it's good that, people are joining in and making these videos possible. Before I begin, if you haven't already, please give this video a thumbs up, and please do not forget to subscribe, because every subscription really does count and move us closer to our overall goal, which I know some people really want us to hit. And jump right into the first question of the episode, coming from a regular of mine going by the name of Brady Burke, and you want to know, do I think it is a good idea to keep Sparta a legend and ambiguous, or flesh him out as a character? If you had asked me this 10 years ago, I would have said, keep him ambiguous and secretive. But now that the Sons of Sparta storyline is pretty much over, and I think moving forward, Capcom should either stick with Nero and just make him the main focus, I think we can at least get one game focusing on Sparta. I think there's enough for a story to be told. To kind of see as he was as a character, why he chose the path he did, and I think it would also give us a great opportunity to see some really solid cinematics of seeing a young Dante and Virgil interact with their father, because I do know that they probably do have some memories of their father, but they don't really speak much about it. And I think Sparta is just such an important character to the overall series that we know so little about him. And heck, we've never actually seen him outside, I believe, like the opening cinematic of Devil May Cry 1, and you kind of see his devil form in Devil May Cry 3. So heck, I would be totally open for at least one game focusing around Sparta. I think that would be a solid idea. Next question comes from Zach Tarr. You want to know, do I think that a Mass Effect remaster would be good? I don't see why not. We've been hearing rumors about a remaster for some time, and they kind of tried something. Well, they didn't really try it. Well, I heard rumors that they were going to try it. But heck, I would say, for the next-gen consoles, for PlayStation 5, if they want to try to get us excited for the next Mass Effect game, and especially after you're taking into effect the disappointment of the Andromeda game, I think a great way to do that would be to give us a chance to replay those older games on a newer console with better graphics on, say, the PlayStation 5 or the next Xbox. I think doing that would definitely get us ready for the next Mass Effect games, which, I'm sure will be coming out sometime next gen. So yeah, I would be totally open for that. That would be cool. Next question comes from Trooper XD Extreme. You want to know, if Devil May Cry crossed over with Final Fantasy, how exciting would it be? Yeah, I don't think it'd be exciting at all. I do not think that is a good idea. They're very, very different, and they just don't mix. When you say Final Fantasy, you need to be specific. You can't just say Final Fantasy, because each Final Fantasy is very, very different. They have different styles, different characters, different tones, and so how would you even want to cross Devil May Cry? And do you want to cross over certain elements? Do you want to send certain characters? I really don't think Dante or Trish or any of those characters would even fit in a Final Fantasy game, and vice versa. So no, I personally would not be excited with a Final Fantasy and Devil May Cry crossover, unless you did something like certain costumes. Like if you want to add some DLC to have some specific characters dressed like Dante, then I'm okay with that, but nothing more than cosmetic. Next question comes from one of the first 2 new people, I believe, and you go by the name of Senovic, awesome name. And you want to know, if I could redo the Star Wars sequel trilogy, what changes would I make, and how would the story play out? I'm going to tell you right now, Svic, I would not have done them. The sequel trilogy was a bad idea. This could not have worked out in any way. The problem is that Disney just had no idea what the heck they were doing. As far as I'm concerned, there's only 6 films in the Star Wars Skywalker series. Only 6. It started with Phantom Menace, and it ended in Return of the Jedi. I acknowledge these 3 films as really just very expensive fan film what-if scenarios. These stories just do not connect to the original 6 films at all in any way. There is no theme, there is no story, there is no arcing arch that connects these films to the original films. If anything, they cause more damage than they do anything. If I was going to do a trilogy, I would have done something like have no connection to this Skywalker series. I would have done a story either 2,000 years later or 2,000 years before, or I would have just done my own separate thing. I think that Disney Star Wars is at its strongest when it has very little or no connection to the already established lore that we have. That's why I think The Mandalorian is so great. It has little hints, just little cues to what we already know, but it very much is its own self-contained story, and that's what they need to focus on. The sequel trilogy was just an overall bad idea. I wouldn't have done it. So overall, if I was going to do a Star Wars trilogy, I would have just have it as far away from Lucas's Star Wars as possible. That is where you will have the most success, and I hope if they move forward, that is what they plan on doing. Let's get away from what George Lucas did. Let's get away from that. Start doing your own stuff so you can have your own identity. Because when you try to piggyback on the nostalgic value, then you have some very, very high standards for yourself. And unfortunately, that's not what happened. It ended up being a complete disaster in my eyes. So, yeah, I wouldn't have done it. Next question comes from the second newbie going by the name of Jeremy Leon Jonas. He wants to know, would I consider making a tie-in to the Versus series? No. This year, I don't want to think about anything Versus series. I mean, I put the challenge out. I put the goal out there. That's as far as I want to go in terms of the Versus series. This year, I want to focus on just doing new content that'll bring people in. Heck, if we get to our goal of 60,000 subscribers by the end of the year, then we will go back to start doing Versus series videos and even supposedly doing tie-ins. But until that happens, I really don't want to think about the series this year. I want to focus on totally different types of content. So that's pretty much all I want to say on the matter. Next question comes from Eric C. You want to know, if I owned my own arcade, what arcade games would I have? Honestly, I actually thought about this since I've been going to my little video game bar like these past couple of weeks. If I was to build an arcade, I would call it. I just had a dream about this last night. I had a dream about what I would call it. Then I would call it Little Tokyo Arcade. Yeah, that's the name. And basically, what I would do is it would be a 2-floor building. And on the first floor, it would be like a pretty standard arcade where you would see like a lot of 80s and 90s games. You pretty much see a lot of stuff that you would see in typical arcades that are still around today. But if you go to the second floor, I would completely redesign it so it would kind of imitate exactly the type of games that you would see in Tokyo. Because arcades are still very popular in Japan, and their styles of arcade games and things that they have are very, very different than what we have here in the States. I would give you the opportunity to see what going to an arcade in Japan would be like, because I've seen pictures and images, and I've talked to people who've actually been to arcades in Tokyo, and that sounds like a very, very fun experience, and I would love to try to bring that experience here to the States. So that's how I would make an arcade if I could build one. And the last question of the episode comes from Rain932, and surprisingly, I do recall you talking about this in the chat, and you kind of brought it up, and you want to know, have I heard of the supposed leaks that Resident Evil 8 will have werewolves and the star will be Chris and Ethan? Who the hell is Ethan? If so, what are my thoughts on the direction of this series that they want to be taking out? Heck, they want to throw werewolves in there? Why not? I wouldn't be surprised if they threw, vampires or mole people or swamp things or mummies. I mean, werewolves is not the weirdest thing we've had. We've seen much stranger things. I mean, I even spoke about this in the chat. We just had a scenario in Resident Evil 6 where we had a guy turn from a saber-toothed tiger to a T-Rex to a bull with a minigun on his back to a fly. I have no idea what those species have in common with each other, but that's about as weird as it gets in Resident Evil. So heck, if they want to throw werewolves in there, go ahead. I mean, as long as we're getting away from the first-person shooter style, which I've heard that's what they're going to do, which if they are, then I will not be playing Resident Evil 8, then I would just go back to sticking with the remakes or the older games I mean, as long as it's fun. But heck, as long if it's where I stand. If it's first person, I don't want to play it. If it's third person, I'm all in for it. They can do whatever the hell they want as long as it's fun and entertaining. Because at this point, this series makes no sense. So why bother? And with that, that pretty much ends the last question of the episode. I want to thank the eight of you for sending in your questions. If you guys have any questions you'd like me to answer in next week's episode, be sure to type them in the comments down below. But make sure you get them into me roughly around Wednesday around noon before I start filming the next episode. And if you want to increase your chances of having them answered in the video, just make sure they're a little bit interesting and have a little bit more depth. That usually improves your chances. Otherwise, I will answer them in the comment section down below as well. So until then, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I will see you next time.